Hey Dweeb, I just picked up the new Nintendo. No way, I thought they were all sold out. Dude, I got the last one. This thing is so gnarly, check it out.
Whoa, this thing is so rad. Well, plug it in.
Ready?
Totally. I don't think it's working.
Okay, so first off, I want to thank Brandon for helping me shoot that over-the-top 80s video game commercial. It was a lot of fun, and yes, the acting was supposed to be over-the-top and cringy. And second, if you haven't already figured this out yet, today I am going to be building a PC inside this old NES system, much like I did the PC build inside the custom GameCube. But with the old NES being so chunky compared to the GameCube, I actually plan on putting a low-profile graphics card into this thing. So hopefully I will be able to get even more performance out of this system than the last one. And with all of that, the first step of this process is taking everything apart and making all the cutouts and fitting everything into this case. Since I'm going to be doing a custom paint job on this system, I have to make sure I do all the cuts and everything before that. This will make it so everything is a uniform color and I don't have to go back in and paint anything if I need to make some extra cuts that I didn't account for. One thing I will say with this case over the GameCube and really any modern system is the plastic in this is so much thicker than all the others I have dealt with. I actually got so sick of my hand hurting trying to cut all this by hand, I went out and bought a diamond edge cutting wheel for my Dremel to make things a lot easier, and ooh baby, I am glad I got that. Some of the cuts in this would have taken me absolutely forever if I would have done it by hand. One thing I needed to make sure I did with this system over the GameCube was add some actual vent holes. One for the CPU cooler and another for the intake fan on the GPU. So I actually took these plastic grates that came out of a really cheap cup holder and then cut them to the size that I wanted. At first I was a little worried that these were going to look a little funny or cheap, but in the end I was really happy with how they turned out. I also needed to cut out the raised bottom of this case because with the GPU being put in here, I had very little room to play with. Even after cutting out the bottom, the graphics card still barely fit into this thing. And to close up the hole at the bottom after cutting out all of that, I just took some plexiglass and cut it in to fit the bottom of the case, and then just glued all of it down with some trusty super glue. Another hard part with these cuts was trying to make a good, clean, fitted cutout for the I/O shield on the back. This took some time and some finer and slower cutting than all the other parts. And I was actually shocked when I actually got it to pressure fit really well in the end. You'll see it when the build is done, but it turned out so well. I also had to make some standoff holes for the motherboard as well, and I did that by just using my drill and gluing the standoffs down. I was really worried that I was going to forget a step in this prepping stage of this build. Somehow I managed to remember all the cutouts that I needed for this thing, and I'm really happy that I actually did. But I am almost done with this first stage of the build. I just need to make some cutouts to fit the grates that I cut out of those cup holders. Now, I guess I did lie a little bit. I did forget one thing in this process. I meant to actually go in with some putty to fill the gaps that I had for the airflow grates before I went in and painted it all. And even though those holes are still there, I did manage to incorporate them into the design pretty seamlessly. So I'm not really too upset that I forgot about it. So to paint this piece, I started off with a layer of primer and coated the whole thing with a cream colored acrylic spray paint. Like always, I like using this acrylic based spray paint because it's a lot easier for me to paint on top of it with my acrylics and paint pens. As for the I/O shield and buttons, I painted those a glossy black for a nice contrast to the stone look that I'll be putting on the whole thing. And then I just buffed out some of the old black panels that were a little scratched up to give them a little bit more of a shine. To achieve the stone look to this case, I took a large brush and watered down a bunch of brown acrylic paint and did a wash over the whole thing and then dabbed all of it off with a paper towel. I gave each layer of wash just a little bit to dry and then repeated this process over and over and over until the stone look was the way I wanted it to be. This is one of those processes that's really satisfying to do because it doesn't take a lot of work and it really changes the look of something like this. So for this piece, I wanted to make Link from The Legend of Zelda. To get all the graphics I wanted on this case, I sketched out a picture of Link on my iPad using Procreate, and then printed it out along with a Triforce and a set of runes that spell out Link. To transfer everything over, I just grabbed some graphite transfer paper and laid the print over it, and then took a pen and traced over my drawing. Peeling off the paper is such a satisfying thing because you finally get to see what it all looks like on your system itself. Once I had all the lines on the case, I took a dark brown paint pen and started lining out the piece. I wanted it to look almost sketch-like, so I made shorter, more rapid lines when it came to doing the outline for this. I feel like this gave the piece a cool look, like it was actually painted on a stone wall. I did this method of sketching with the Triforce as well, except I did it with yellows. And it was kind of a freeing feeling of just doing this sketched out lines for a final piece, instead of being like overly careful to get the lines just right with the paint. And I will also leave a link for the paint pens that I used in the description below. Totally didn't mean to have that link pun in there, but I'm sticking to it. When it came to adding color to this piece, I just took some regular forest green acrylic paint and watered it down a bit. I didn't want the colors to be super bold because I felt the contrast would be way too strong with the vibe of this piece. And to water it down, you want to make sure you're not watering it down way too much that it's basically just a wash, but just enough that the saturation of the color is brought down a little bit. I left the colors in this piece pretty limited though. For the whole piece, I only used brown, green, yellow, blue, and tan. I felt that this would make the stone wall painting feel a little more real, like the people who painted it were very limited on resources that they had to be able to make different colors. And once I finished painting all the graphics onto this piece, I went in with the same brown marker that I used on Link's outline, and then made some cracks throughout the entire case to really send home that stone wall feel. One thing that I wanted to add to this piece that I haven't really added to any of my other system designs is a 3D aspect to it. So I took some Sculpey and cut out and shaped some bricks and then glued them throughout the case. I really love the extra detail that these bricks bring out in this piece. I feel like this brought out a lot more depth than when I painted them on for my PlayStation 1 piece I did. And if you haven't seen that video yet, I will have a link for that in the card as well, and you should go check that out after you watch this video. But once all those bricks were all done, all I had to do now was add some green moss color onto this case and the bricks, and then throw a layer of matte clear coat over the entire thing. Some of the last things I wanted to do before I actually started building the PC into this thing was that I needed to add a dust screen for the vent holes and pre-install the exhaust fan on the bottom, add the power button, and then reattach all the original buttons and black shields, and it was pretty much ready to build a PC into it. Oh, and I can't forget the green LED strip as well to give it a cool little glow on the inside. Alright, so the painting is all done for the case, and I'm in a different spot right now because I'm actually going to try to do all of this in real time of building the computer and everything, so let's just hop down below and start building this thing. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to put in here is our Ryzen 5 1600, and it's pretty simple putting this stuff in. There's going to be a little tiny arrow right in the bottom corner right here. Basically gonna line up this little triangle with the triangle that's down here on this. We're gonna lift the arm and put that right in. Next thing we need to do is we're going to take off these mounting brackets because this is for a different style mount. Just put some on right here. Might be a little bit too much, but it's not too big of a worry. When you have too much, it's not like it's gonna be, I mean, unless you're really globbing it on there, it's mainly just gonna be a mess when you take it apart again. But I don't plan on taking this apart anytime soon. Line these up. For a little squish. Eight gigs of RAM. These are each 4 gigs each, I believe. Yep, so these are each 4 gig. I plan to upgrade this RAM at some point, but this is what I got on me at the moment, so this is what we're going for. And put a little pressure down on that. It should click right in. I remember when I first started putting in RAM, I was always scared I was putting too much pressure on it and I was gonna break it. Next thing, we got our 500 gig M.2. Screw that right in. And I already pre-installed my exhaust fan. And I just kind of put some of this stuff in place to make it a little easier on myself. And where is my I/O shield? There it is. Alright, so basically we're just going to take this, plug that into here, and this go into there. Okay, so now we are going to do the power switch and power LED. The last things we got to hook up here is our power supply. There we go. So now we just need to do a little bit of cable management here. Now let's squeeze in that GPU 8-pin CPU plug. All right, we got everything all set up. Now I gotta go take this over to one of my computer screens and try powering this thing up and see if everything works. Alright everyone, the ultimate PC inside an NES is all done, and I am absolutely loving this thing. Not just because of the simplicity of the design of this, but because this thing is an absolute beast as well. And this isn't the first PC that I've crammed into an old system. If you haven't seen the video where I did a PC build inside this old GameCube, you should check that out. I'm gonna have a link for it down below. Also, if you haven't noticed yet, I finished my shelving over here. Isn't it so beautiful? Look at the lights. Look at. I can change the colors. What did I have on? Green? Close enough. But if you want to see future videos where I take my love of art and love of electronics and cram them into one, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn that little bell notification thingy on. And like always, keep drawing, and until next time, bye. Bye. Well, you're the one who came over to me. What? I don't know what to tell you. You're an angry kitty.
No way, I thought they were all sold out. Like server guy.
Oh yeah, it is recording. Okay. You see me?
If I'm staying in camera, if I'm out of camera or not.